So in today's video, we are going to be breaking down n8n into the most simple explanation possible so that even a 10-year-old would understand what it is, how it works, why it matters, and by the end of the video, we are going to be building out our very first automation using n8n absolutely for free. Let's get into this right now. So you can think about n8n, probably the most simple explanation of this software here is you can think about it like a reliable digital employee, okay? Think about training employee. You have to give it step-by-step instructions on what you want that person to do. And very similar with n8n, once you give those step-by-step instructions, it's going to follow those perfectly every single time. So let me give you an example here. So say you have an email that comes in, okay, and you want to send off a reply to somebody. As soon as an email comes in, n8n will receive that email. It could generate a response using something like ChatGPT and then send it back, okay? And so if we were to do this manually in the good old days, we'd have to go to our email, wait, of course, for this email to come in. Then we'd need to copy this entire email and then make sure you actually copy the right part of it, go into ChatGPT and say, please, in not all capital cases, because I don't want to scream at ChatGPT, but please reply to this email for me, okay? And then paste it in, wait for it to generate a response, hope that it gets it right in the right tone of voice, copy this back, and then reply back and send it away. Now, this whole process takes maybe a minute, maybe 2 minutes, but with n8n, that whole process can be 100% automated. Like you don't even have to do any of it because it can be done by a digital employee for you. So think about it like this. Imagine every single morning you wake up and you have 5 tasks that you need to do. You need to check your emails and reply to them. You need to organize Google Drive, maybe make a social media post, create a blog post, and reply to customer inquiries, okay? So imagine instead you just use n8n up here, okay? And you show it how to do each task one time. And the next day after you've showed n8n, you wake up, all these tasks, they're already done for you. You don't even have to go back. You don't have to change them. You don't have to edit them, do anything. They're just done. Everything's done for you. n8n can connect into your favorite tools like Gmail up here or ChatGPT or Google Drive or Google Sheets. And every single morning, it's automatically done, okay? So let me give you a couple other examples of exactly what this looks like. In case you're wondering. So the first one is that n8n could do something like on the Gmail example, automatically organizing and sorting your whole inbox. So imagine coming into an inbox and having things organized very nicely. It's all categorized. Maybe you've removed all the junk emails. You can automatically reply to people, create drafts, all of that kind of stuff. That's a good use case scenario for n8n. Another use case could be automatically creating blog posts, something like this, and then automatically publishing these in real time, okay? In the good old days, if you wanted to do this, you'd have to spend like 4 hours writing a blog post about AI automation, and it would just absolutely take forever. But now this can be done pretty much 100% automatically. Or let's say you create that blog post and you want to then publish that on something like social media, like a LinkedIn post, okay? Then again, you'd have to spend the time, create all the content, and then publish it online. But with n8n, you can do this pretty much automatically, again, without even having to be present, creating any of the post, okay? Another example could be something that looks like this, which looks a bit scary. It's not actually as complicated as it looks, but what this does is it automatically organizes your entire Google Drive. So imagine coming into your Google Drive and instead of having everything disorganized and all over the place and you trying to find all of these files that ultimately are just either hidden or you didn't name them properly so you can't find them, and it's just messy and disorganized and it kind of gives you anxiety even looking at it, you could have an automation that just cleans it up so that it's all nicely organized in all the folders that you're already using. And so that's kind of the power of n8n. Just one last example here is something like this, where let's say somebody comes onto your website, say you sell plumbing services, for example. Somebody might be interested in hiring you as a plumber. They fill out a form saying, hey, I'm interested in working with you. And then you can use n8n to wait for that form submission to come come in and then automatically enter this person's first name, last name, email, phone number, and message straight into a Google Sheet, and then automatically be notified when that person inquires with your services. And so that is the power of n8n. You can automate this whole process, even send an email to yourself being like, hey, we've received a new lead from John Smith and here's the number and all of that kind of stuff. Okay. And so that in a nutshell is n8n. Now that we've talked about n8n and given a couple examples, let's go ahead and create a 14-day free trial up here so that we can actually build out our first automation together. And so as we go through this, I'm going to be walking through all of the details that are normally missed so that when you're following along, you should have a really good understanding of exactly how this works. So I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to enter in all of my information here and start the 14-day free trial. This is going to take a couple seconds just to create my account. And then once we're inside, I'll return the video again. And it's going to ask for this short survey where I'm going to give very honest answers. I'm just kidding. I'm just clicking through this as quickly as possible to get to the next stage. Now, our workspace has now officially been created. So we're going to go ahead and start automating. Okay. And so it's going to log us into our account. And the first thing we're going to do is hit this loading or this home page here. Okay. And so I just want to give you a nice little secret about this application. 99% of your time, you're going to be focused on creating workflows up top here. Okay. It's very rare that I'll really do anything other than create a new workflow or update an existing one. And so for that reason, they've got a lot of things on the side here. And I really don't focus a whole lot on this kind of stuff. The main thing is you're going to be building workflows. And so because I literally spend 99.99% of my time in here, I'm just going to move over to the one thing that actually matters in this application. And we're going to go ahead and create a new workflow together. Okay. And so essentially in a nutshell, in n8n, we can hit this add a first step. Now inside n8n, there's two parts to any particular automation. If we go back to our example up here, there is a trigger and then there are actions. Okay. And so what a trigger is it's what starts the particular workflow. And so in our example, what starts the workflow is when we receive an email. So when we receive an email, that is the start of the workflow. And then we have what are called actions, which are certain things that happen afterwards. Okay. And there's a lot of different actions we can take inside n8n, but a common one may be creating a response to that email and then automatically generating a draft or even sending it off to the person that emailed us. So for instance, when we receive this email over here, automatically generating this response and sending it back to the person immediately. Okay. And so we have triggers and actions. Great. So we're going to get started by hitting the plus button here. And on the right-hand side, we can see all of the triggers that you have access to from within n8n. We're not going to go through every single one of these. I'll just kind of point out a couple. So again, you can think about a trigger like us receiving an email from Gmail. That's one example of a trigger, but there's so many more things. So for instance, we could have like an on schedule trigger here where we say every single day or every single hour, we want to start a workflow. Or for example, it could be a form submission down here. So if I go over to my website and somebody fills out the form here, this could be a trigger as well. Okay. And so those are kind of like built-in n8n triggers here. We also have these on app triggers, which are triggers that are not n8n applications. So for instance, we have access to all of these additional apps in here. Some ones that you're probably familiar with would be like Gmail, for instance, or we could have all of the Google apps like Google Docs or Google Sheets, Google Drive, Google Slides, all of that kind of stuff. Now, for our example, because we're going to be building out this workflow that waits for emails to come in, we're going to be using Gmail as our example here, and they only have one trigger, which is on message received. Okay, so when we receive a message from Gmail, we're going to start this workflow. Now, we're going to go through this whole thing, okay, because there's a lot of stuff to unpack here. We're going to go through it step by step. stuff. And specifically, we're going to start with this central console right here. And we're going to go through this one by one. Now, the first thing it's going to say is we need to connect our credential, okay? What this means is that in order for n8n to do things on our behalf, like in order for it to receive emails, in order for it to send emails, in order for it to do anything in Gmail, we need to give permission for n8n to be able to log in on our behalf and do things like send off emails. And so in order for us to do that, we need to give it permission. So we're going to create a credential here, and we're going to sign in through Google, okay? And it's going to open up a new tab. We'll sign into our account here, and we just need to hit this checkbox saying we give permission for n8n to do things automatically on our behalf for up to 6 months. The connection has been created, and now n8n has access to our email inbox, and we can start doing things like receiving emails in here, sending off emails. So as an example, if we hit the X over here, okay, and actually, sorry, just before we hit the X, it's very important to name this because you might have like 3, 4, 5 different emails in here, and it can get disorganized quickly. So you just want to make sure you organize it properly. We'll click Save, and then we'll hit X over here, and now we have connected in our account. So we can test this out by hitting this orange button over here, Fetch Test Results, and it's going to pull out this most recent email that we received here. So if we go into our inbox, this email that we received here is the email that we just received inside n8n, okay? So all this information is actually this exact email right here, okay? And so in a nutshell, we have so much more than just what meets the eye when you go into your Gmail inbox, for example. It's not just the text that you receive here, but you get all different types of things like who it's from and who it's sent to and the date and the subject and all of these kind of things and so much more you can actually see over here, okay? And so it's literally pulling out all of the details for us. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about here is the polling times, okay? And so this is kind of important when it comes to triggering a workflow from within n8n. And again, we have our trigger where we're receiving emails here. There's 2 major types of triggers inside n8n, okay? So there's like instant triggers over here. I'm gonna circle over to my whiteboard. And an instant trigger is like, kind of like a lightning bolt here, where when you receive data into n8n, okay, it's instant. And as soon as like, you know, some event happens, like a form submission, for example, somebody fills out a form, this takes like 0 seconds. It's just done immediately. And so this is an instant trigger. And there's something called polling as well, okay? And so polling is the second type of trigger. And what this means is that you have some specific time horizon. It could be 1 minute, where every minute that passes by, n8n will send a request over. And think about this like Gmail over here, okay? So n8n over here will send a request every minute to Gmail, and it will ask a question. It'll be like, hey, have you received any emails recently? Like, has anything in the last minute over here, has anything come in? And if the answer is yes, they'll be like, okay, here's the email that's been received in the last minute here. But if there's no email that's been received in the last minute, then it will not send anything back. And so what's going on here is that the difference is that with this instant trigger here, as soon as some action happens, it's instantly sent over to n8n. But over on the polling section here, what's going on here is that we have to actually ask our application, in this case is Gmail, if anything's happened, and only once we ask at some interval. Could be 1 minute, could be 1 hour, could be 1 day, could be every month or whatever, then we're only going to get the data back at this interval that we set here, okay? And so that's really the difference between the two. In this instance here, it's a poll. Some are polls, some are instant triggers, and you'll know because if it says poll here, then it's going to request information on a given time frame. This could be a minute, every hour, every day, every week, every month, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to go ahead and choose every month. Then it will say the minute here. So you could be like every 30 minutes into the hour, for example, or every 20 minutes into the hour. You can choose this. I'm just going to leave this at 0. Sweet. And then we have this event over here, which is like really useless because there's only one option. I'm not quite sure why this is there. And then lastly, we have simplify here. Okay. And so what simplify means is that we don't get all of the information that we need back from our email. So for instance, like this whole text body here is not actually in this response. We get like a text snippet, which is just maybe like the first 100 words in this particular response. So maybe we get like this much back exactly, right? But it's not giving us the whole thing. And so if we want to receive all of the data back, then we have to uncheck simplify here. And you'll notice if I run this again, take a look at the information now. We can't scroll down. There's no extra info. If we fetch it again, now we have access to so much more information. Okay. And so that's the difference between simplified responses and not. And then we have filters here. So you can have specific filters that you search emails for. So a good example would be like, let's say I want to search by n8n.io. So I could search and then it pulls up all of the emails based on the search. You can get that exact search functionality from within Gmail inside n8n here by doing the search. And then you have access to only pull in specific emails that match a criteria. So maybe the subject line has to be n8n, for instance. That's just one example. Okay, I'm going to delete this, but you kind of get the point when it comes to filters. And then of course we have options down here is the last thing. And with options, these are not required fields. These are just additional things you can add on in case you need more details. Okay, so an example would be maybe you want to download the attachments. So say this email has a file on it. Maybe it has a PDF file. You could actually download that PDF from within n8n as well. And lastly, I just want to point out here that with the outputted response, if you look over at the top right-hand corner here, we have something called schema, table, and JSON. Now, in a nutshell, this is just displaying data in 3 different ways. Okay, so it's the same data that could be displayed in the schema format here. This is defined as schema. Then we have table data. Okay, again, everything's the exact same. It's just a different way of seeing the same information. And then we have JSON data down here as well. Okay, and so nothing really changes other than the way the data is displayed. Typically speaking, for most beginners, the schema format is going to be the easiest way to be able to scan data and understand it quickly. Okay, now what we can do is we can hit back to canvas at the top left here, okay? And it's going to return us back to the main page. We can also open this up again if we wanted to by double clicking it, okay? That's an option as well. And we can also exit out of this by hitting escape, and then we'll come back to this main page as well. Next thing that we want to do here is we want to be able to generate that response. Okay, and so what we'll do is we're going to enter or hit the plus button right here, and we're going to type in OpenAI. Now I'm going to click OpenAI here, and there is a lot of different options that we can do here. Now, in a nutshell, what we want to do is we want to, in essence, import in something like ChatGPT into our particular instance of n8n. So we could more or less just interface kind of back and forth exactly like this. And the easiest way to do that is by clicking message a model, which is right over here. So we want to choose this message a model down here. Now there's a lot of other things you can use here. Most of this I don't use all that much, but the main one that you'll use repeatedly is message a model. And this will generate some response. It could be text response, images, not images. It's some text response that it could generate. You could also generate images down here, for example, or generate audio messages or whatever. But in our case, we want to generate a text response to an email. So we're going to message a model. Okay, sweet. And so on the left-hand side here, we have something called the input section here. Remember how the last node we had outputs, okay? And by the way, this is called a node, any of these are called nodes inside n8n. Now, if we opened up Gmail, we had the output here, okay? And this same output, everything we see here, such as, for example, who the email is sent to, who the email is sent from, what the text of the email is, all of these outputs are going to be passed as inputs to the next node here, okay? And so you can think about it like a baton race where almost every single runner will pass the information from them to the next person in line. So it's a baton race where you're always passing information along. And so any past information that you've received, you can now use in future nodes. Okay, so if we open this back up here, we have access to all of this information over here that we receive from Gmail. Now, inside ChatGPT, you'll notice that you get 100 free OpenAI credits to use, and you can just claim these credits here, okay? And now automatically you have access to ChatGPT. Now, here's the thing. This will eventually run out and you will need to connect in your account. And if you want to use n8n, you really have to know how to use this stuff properly. So what I want to do is I want to talk about how you can integrate in ChatGPT, okay? And in the past node, we had something called we could sign into our account. Okay, that's one way of signing into accounts from within n8n, but there's two different types of ways you can sign into an account. So one, you can directly just sign into your Google account and it gives you permission and then you're good to go. The second one is using something called an API key. So if we click this box up here and create new credential, it's going to ask for an API key. What an API key is it's a password, okay? And just like when you sign into your profile on Gmail or whatever, it's going to ask you for a password. API keys are the same thing. It's just a way for you to verify who you are so that Google or ChatGPT in this instance understands that it's you and they can give access to your account. So we need to grab this API key. And how we do that is we head over to platform.openai.com. And we're going to log in to our particular account here. If you haven't done so already, you'll want to create an account. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to log into my account here. And once we're inside, what we're going to do, if we can eventually get inside by typing our password correctly. Okay, sweet. And of course, it asks me to verify. Okay, and we've got the code here. Once we get inside this account, we need to head over to the settings. Now, it slightly is going to differ depending on the application you're on, but generally speaking, all of these applications work the same way. If you ever need to get an API key, you need to head over to settings, okay? And somewhere in the settings, they will have like API keys here. You can typically search for API and it will give you a section here to click on, and then you'll have the ability to create a new API key, okay? So we'll go ahead, create this, and I'm just going to call this test n8n API key. You can name this whatever it is you want. There's nothing special about this. Just go ahead and name it what you want. We'll create the key. We'll click copy here, and then we'll head back and paste it right into that API key section there, and then we're good to go. We've connected in our account, okay? The only other thing is that in order for us to use this, we need to go to billing and add $5 for our ChatGPT subscription. Now, for the purpose of this video, you should already have these 100 free credits, so you do not need to do that. You don't need to spend any money. I'm just showing you how you'd go about doing this in the future. Okay, perfect. Now, the next thing here is that we have resources, okay? This is the next section down, and this really, we can swap out what we want to do with ChatGPT. Now, this I think is almost irrelevant here, just because this resources tab is a carbon copy. If we go back here, we hit back to Canvas and we hit the plus button and we type in OpenAI again, we had all these options up here. It's pretty much the exact same. Like all of the options that we had here are the exact same options, more or less, that we have in resource. So if you ever want to swap out what you're doing, you can come here, but we've already predetermined that we wanted to receive a text response. And so the resource we're using is text. We could switch to audio, file, image, assistant, but we want text. Next thing is operation. We're going to message a model. Usually these two things, resources and operation, you never really change all that much. I don't think I've changed it all that much using n8n for a very long time. Okay, so yeah, we're just going to stick with message a model. All of these things are a bit more advanced and I've never used before. Now, the next thing here is the model that we're going to choose. So we can open this up, and it's kind of scary using ChatGPT because there's just so many options. But if we head back to our ChatGPT example here and we go up to the top right, and keep in mind I'm on a pro plan, but you have access to multiple different models that you want to use here. And very similarly, you also have access to those same models and many more inside n8n. So you can go ahead and choose it. It's just that with ChatGPT, you default to 4.0, but usually what I like to do is use the most up-to-date recent model. I'm going to type in 4.1 just because that's the newest model, and I'm going to do specifically mini. And the reason why is because mini is cheaper and faster, which means you don't spend as much money, and 4.1 is the newest model, which means it's probably the best, smartest, and usually the quickest as well. And so typically speaking, what we need to do next is we need to add in messages, okay? And you can think about a message almost like you just typing down here when you're asking it to do something. It's just slightly different because inside n8n, you can add in 3 types of messages. You can add in a system message, a user message, and you can add in an assistant message, okay? We're gonna be mostly just talking about the user message and the system message for this video, but you can think about a system message as the instructions here. We're just telling ChatGPT what it is that we want it to do. So in this case, we're just saying, you're an intelligent bot capable of reading an email and creating a nice reply to that email. Okay, so that's all we're doing. We can think about it exactly like I said here. We're giving instructions as to what we want it to do. And then the user message is essentially giving ChatGPT the input that we want. So we're giving it the email that we want it to reply to. So if we come back here, this is the input down here. So we have both of these messages technically inside n8n. Okay, and so with this, we need to pass in this email that we received. If we hit back to Canvas here, we have this email that we have received inside n8n. And so we want to reply to that. So if we open up this message model here, we can do something called mapping, okay? Mapping variables, which is just a fancy way of saying that we have access to all these past modules here. And in the Gmail module specifically, if we were to scroll down here, we have access to the text of that particular email that we received here, okay? And so what mapping is we can drag this text. So I'm just literally holding text down and then I'm dragging it right into the prompt here, okay? And so now we can see that the email that we received that had text in it now is here in the prompt. We can actually see all of the text of that email. If I hit this nice little button right here, it's going to open up, and this is that entire email that we can see on the right-hand side here, okay? So again, we are finding that email on the left-hand side, which is the text item here. We're dragging that text into the center here, okay? And it's saying JSON.text. This is just how it references in code, essentially, the email from the previous node, from the Gmail node. And then what this actually looks like is the same email here, okay? So this is just code for it to reference the past email we received, but this is the actual output over here, which is exactly the same as the message we received from Gmail. Okay, so we're just passing that in. And then the assistant message down here, we're not going to go too deep into this, but this is how we can format the output of the message here. Okay, so if there is a specific way we wanted to format this, we could go ahead and do that. It's a bit more complicated, and as an intro course to n8n, you don't necessarily need to know this. It's not very applicable, but if you do decide to go a mile deep into n8n, you will want to learn it. We'll hit the execute step over here, and we'll go ahead and we will take that incoming email, we'll give it some instructions, and then we'll output the response over here. And so now what we have is the output on the right-hand side. And so we can see that we have now replied, or we've now responded to that email. So we can see here, hi Google security team, thank you for your notification. I have reviewed my account activity and confirmed that I did not authorize n8n.cloud to access some of my Google account's data. No unauthorized access was detected. I appreciate the proactive security alert. Please continue to keep me informed. Okay, and so it's just going ahead and it's just generating a response on our behalf. Now, a couple things in here is that we could, of course, add in additional things, just like we could add in with ChatGPT. We could be like, please don't include a subject line. Please don't include a subject line. We could also say, please don't include intros or outros. You know how ChatGPT sometimes will be like, sure, here's a professional and friendly response for you to send. And then it'll be like, please let me know if you want to do something else. We don't want that in here. We just want the exact email to be crafted here. So we can say, please don't include intros and outros. And please never put placeholders. So for instance, your name down here is a placeholder. We don't want to send a message back saying your name. So I'm going to say, please don't put placeholders such as your name. Okay. And then we could even say sign off as Jono. So we can go ahead and we can execute this step one more time, and it should take all of these instructions that we gave and implement them. Thanks for the heads up. I'll review the access and make sure everything is secure on my account, Jono. Now you'll see these two /ns here. These are line breaks in inside like code, essentially, is the best way I can describe it. So it's essentially doing this. This is one line break here. This is another line break here. And that's the exact same as those two ends over there. Okay, sweet. So we've officially made it to the second node. Now the third node is we're going to add in is we're going to create a draft response for that particular email. So what we can do here is we can go ahead and hit the plus button one more time, and we're going to type in Gmail. Okay, and this time we're going to open this up and we're going to type in draft. We want to specifically create a draft. So we'll add this in. And you'll notice this time we actually have the credential saved. And that's because we've already gone ahead and added it before. So I'm going to hit back to Canvas here. We already added in our Gmail account, which means that anytime we use Gmail in the future, we've already connected in. We don't have to do it twice. So I'm going to open this up again by double tapping the Gmail node there. And we can go through this. So the next thing is we have the resource. And again, we've already kind of covered this, but this is if we wanted to change what we wanted to do. Maybe we want to message somebody or reply to a thread or add a label onto an email, but we want to create a draft email. And specifically, we don't want to delete a draft. We don't want to find a draft or find many drafts. We want to create a draft, okay? And so what we're going to do now is we're going to continue on with this. It's asking for a subject line. And to be honest with you, I don't know why it's asking for a subject line, because anytime you reply to an email, you don't have to include a subject line. So I just put the dash here because it's going to remove that anyways. And then the email type down here is essentially saying, do you want this to be in text or do you want this to be in HTML? And typically speaking, we want it to be in text. So for example, this email over here, if I just open up ChatGPT, if I was to say, please put this email in HTML, this is kind of what HTML looks like. And we do not want it in this format. We just want to type in plain text. Okay, so this is something we 100% don't need. I'm just explaining to you what that actually means. We're going to choose text, and we can drag the content over here, hold it down, drag, and place it into the message section over here. And now we have the ChatGPT generated response in the message that we're going to send back to somebody. So again, ChatGPT generated it. We're dragging it from here over here, and this is the message that we're going to send back. And you remember those two /ns there? We can see that there's two line breaks over here that have now been successfully added in. And so that's what it more or less looks like. So it doesn't have these ends here. It has the two line breaks. Awesome. So next, what we want to do is we want to go in and add options down here two to be exact. First of all, we want to pass in something called a thread ID, which is essentially saying, because we're creating a draft to an existing email, so we're going to hit back to Canvas, we want to reply to this email. We don't want to just create a generic draft. So what I mean by that is if we go into our inbox here and we have this particular email, we want to reply to this specific email. We don't want to just create a generic draft that isn't attached to an email. If we're going to reply to an email, we want to reply to the exact email. And so for that reason, what we need to do, if we're going to open up this draft again, is we need to pass in a thread ID, which will allow us to respond specifically to this. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's set this up. So we have thread ID, but you'll notice there is no thread ID here. Now, this is where, again, referencing that baton kind of analogy here, is that we can access all the information from past nodes. So the Gmail node will pass it to ChatGPT, ChatGPT will pass it to Gmail again. So if we open this up, we have access to both message the model and Gmail. Okay, so we click on this like nice little arrow here, and now we have access to everything from Gmail as well. So now if we scroll down here, we should be able to find thread ID somewhere. Now you can I usually just Command F this at the top here, thread ID, and usually it comes up, which in this case it doesn't. And that's because it's not in this viewport here. So we just need to keep scrolling until we find it, but it should be somewhere here. Okay, there we go. We found thread ID. I just passed over it the first time. So I'm gonna hold this down and I'm gonna drag this in. Okay, so now we can see this thread ID that we're passing in is the same as over here. Okay, so we're passing in the existing thread ID. Anytime we receive a message from Gmail, it will contain all this information, such as the thread ID. We're going to add in one more option here, and we're going to enter in a to email. So this is specifically replying to a particular person. So let me give you an example of why this matters. I'm going to delete this, and I'm going to test this step up top here. If I test this particular step here, okay, what's going to happen is it's going to generate a particular draft. We can see the draft coming in, but we're not sending it to anyone in particular. And that's because we never entered in that to email here. So we'll add in the to email. I'm going to go back and I'm going to delete this draft. And this time we just need to send, we need to identify who we're sending it to. So in Gmail, we're going to scroll to the bottom here and we're going to send it to the from address. And this is a bit confusing because we have a to address up top here and we have a from address, but just keep in mind that if we're receiving the address, it was sent from this person to us. Okay, so we don't want to send it back to ourselves. We want to send it to the person that initially messaged us, which in this case is Google. Okay, so we're applying to here and we can see that we don't want to reply back to ourselves. We want to reply over to Google. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to copy the address over here. And now we can click execute this step one more time. And from within our Gmail account over here, we can see that the Gmail draft has been created with the message. And we also have the email that we're replying to. So I could now send this and it's going to automatically reply to this email if I wanted to. And personally, I like creating the draft emails because if for whatever reason this doesn't represent you or you don't approve what it says, you can always come in here and change it. Usually when you automatically send things, you might make mistakes. You might not be happy with what it sends out on your behalf. So it's always good to have a quick once over. This can still save a significant amount of time. So let's close this by hitting back to Canvas, and we're going to delete this draft and we're going to go back into this workflow and we're going to execute the workflow from down here. So the difference between executing it down here and in any of these individual tests is that when you test it from within a node, like this node here, this one, or this one, it only tests that particular step. If we test this down here, it's going to test the whole workflow. So we'll go ahead, fire this off, and now it's executed the whole thing. So we can go ahead, take a look at our Gmail account, and now it found the email, it replied to the email, and it generated a completely brand new response to us. Okay, and so that is how we can generate or create one workflow inside n8n. When we're happy with it, we can turn it active. And now this is going to work for every single email that comes into our inbox. So if you have 100 emails a day, it will reply to those 100 emails in a given amount of time. In this particular trigger here, if we open this up, we're setting it to once every hour. If you get, this is perfect if you get 24 or less emails every single day. If you get 100 emails every single day, maybe you want to send this to a higher cadence. So it's going to retrieve more emails more frequently. Okay. And so that's just one workflow, how we could set this up. And once you kind of understand these basics, you're well on your way to being able to learn all about n8n. And just before we wrap up the video here, I want to share error handling inside n8n, because if you're going to use this seriously, you're going to encounter errors. There's no way around it. So I'm going to open up this draft email here. Okay. I'm just going to delete this to email and type in some gibberish down here, something that I know it's going to cause an error. So if we run this workflow now, it's going to execute the two workflows, and then it's going to hit this particular error here. I think my face might be covering it, but it says problem in Node, create a draft. And so when you're dealing with errors inside n8n, it's really important to do two things. When you encounter this, you need to understand where the error is actually occurring. And the easiest way to figure out where the error is occurring is because you'll see it flashing in red over here. And if that's the case, then you know that this is the problematic node. So this is green, which means it was successful. This is green, which means it's successful. And this is red, which means it's not successful. We can also see that there's a one item here, which means that essentially data passed from here to here. And we can see one item here, which means data was passed from here to here. And so those are the two telltale signs that something has been successful inside n8n. And so, just keep that in mind. The next thing also worth mentioning is that when you open this up, okay, now you actually have to dissect the problem. And sometimes this can feel quite intimidating, because on the right-hand side here, it says, hey, you have this massive error, and we can open this up. And if you're looking at this, you might be like, node operation error, invalid email address, item 0 at user local lib, all this kind of stuff in it. It's kind of intimidating, okay? Let me explain the easiest way to overcome most of the issues that you're going to experience inside n8n. You're going to open up a new tab and go to ChatGPT here. And what you want to do is just open up all of these errors. So we're going to hit like other info here, and we're just going to highlight all of this, okay? And we're going to go into ChatGPT, and we're going to say, I encountered this error inside n8n. Can you please tell me what's going on? And I say please here just because I'm Canadian and I feel like it's my responsibility to always be polite to AI. Okay. So I've sent it off, and this will just essentially tell us exactly what's going on here. So the error you're seeing means that the Gmail node in your n8n workflow is trying to send an email to an invalid email address, in this case, this, which is not properly formatted email address, okay? And so it'll tell us the cause, it'll tell us how to fix it, it'll walk us through the whole thing. ChatGPT is amazing at figuring this kind of stuff out. And so it will give us the step-by-step breakdown, and then we'll figure out, okay, that's exactly what's going on here. Now all we have to do to correct it is to be able to send off or add in the email address that we want to send that to. We can test the step, and then it should work, and then we're good to go, okay? And so ChatGPT is going to be your best friend when it comes to handling all of these types of errors. Sweet. Now, as next steps here, if you want to learn more about n8n, I recommend going over to my YouTube channel here and doing two things. First of all, subscribing to the channel so that you can see all the other videos that I talk about and release on n8n and how you can automate the work that you're currently doing by hand, but also so that you can scroll down and watch this free 2-hour n8n masterclass here, where we break down everything you need to know in n8n from start to finish. This is going to significantly help you improve your skills in n8n, build a ton of workflows so that you feel confident with this technology. The use cases for this, there's so many, but the two main transformations that a platform like n8n does for you is it allows you to automate up to 80% of your existing business, or you can sell these services to other people. And so if you guys are looking for more guidance or more of a transformation, you can always take a look at my school community over here where I help people accomplish those two transformations. First of all, automating up to 80% of your existing business. I give you the exact blueprints that I use to scale my business to 7 figures. And also for those of you who are looking to create an AI automation agency, and I give you the exact roadmap that's worked for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you found value in this video, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.